We're joined by the incredible talented Maury Sterling, best known for his role as Max in Showtime's Homeland, a fan favorite throughout the series' run. He also made a wild impression as Lester Tremor in Smokin Aces, where he stole scenes with that unforgettable chaos. With a career that spans gritty thrillers to sharp TV dramas, Maury is one of those rare actors who fully disappears into the role. We talk about his journey, his process, and what it really means to build a long-lasting career in Hollywood. Episode 1. Mr. Sterling, how are you?
I'm well, man. It's great to see you.
It is great to see you, man. It's been a minute.
It has been a minute.
I've been such a fan of yours. I remember seeing you in the theater piece. What was the name of the theater in Santa Monica?
There was the Powerhouse Theater down there in Santa Monica.
No, but at
No, no, you were talking about the Ruskin
the Ruskin
Ruskin
Theater
Theater,
Group.
Santa Monica Airport. Yeah.
That's the first time I saw you as an actor. I had no idea who you were, and then obviously just you continue to just kick some ass and take some names. So if you don't mind, please go ahead and just introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, how you got here, and then we'll just jump in.
I will. Let me also compliment you first because um, I remember meeting you through my wife Alexis because you were training her mom. And I just love this story of you being like, yeah, I got an idea for a script. And then years later, here you are, accomplished producer, writer, actor. You're an inspiration. Um,
Thank you, brother.
I, yeah, no, it's one of my favorite things in life is to see people kind of find their way, and maybe you started here, but then you end up over here and you held on to
Right.
those dreams and you were willing to just kind of stumble along and trip over yourself. And once upon a time, uh, I grew up. I mean, I guess I'll give you just kind of the rundown on life and all that stuff.
Yeah, where'd you come from? How did you get into
Yeah,
Hollywood?
whole story. I'm a Virgo. I was born and raised in Marin County, Mill Valley, California. Marin. Grew up in the Bay Area. It was a '70s. Date myself. It was. I always say it was a really spoiled childhood, just because I got to run around in the woods and it was a crazy time. And then was there through high school, and then was choosing between two schools. One was Stanford, where my family. I was choosing between Stanford and UCLA. I started acting when I was about 7. I started doing theater. I remember walking by. I remember. I really remember. I remember walking by the theater at my little elementary school, and they were doing a show, and I felt this like little tug. There's a little thing saying, "What is that? What is that?" And I wasn't totally into sports, and I wasn't. I think inherently we're all looking for that thing, and I felt this little pull, and I started doing theater as a kid. I started doing a lot of local theater, musical theater. Um, Through high school, sort of in high school, I was known as the actor. That was my deal. It was all pretty well rounded. By that point, I was doing sports, soccer and lacrosse, and um, but I'd always done this theater thing, and then yeah, college was kind of when I made the decision. It was between Stanford and UCLA, and it was the UCLA theater department. I have a crazy family legacy at Stanford, so there was a lot of it. My dad even was like, he did a good job of kind of giving me a little shove and saying, why don't you go a little further away from home? But I think more than that, choosing to go to UCLA was choosing to take the acting thing seriously. Like I was actually
Mm.
gonna make the choice to follow this as a career path, more than just a hobby or something I love, but like, no, I'm gonna do this.
Wow.
Yeah, so I did the theater program there. It was funny. My nephew was out visiting colleges a few years back, and I had one of those cool sort of perception shifts where I was I was saying to him, God, part of me really wishes I'd gone to a conservatory. I wish I'd really. I've I'm a little bit crazy in sort of how I see things and how things are actually happening. Um, and always want to improve, always want to be better, always like kind of not what's the next angle. In a good way, that means I really love a challenge. In the bad way, we can tear ourselves apart with that. We can just destroy ourselves with that kind of language. Um, so I was saying to him, like, yeah, I wish I'd gone to a conservatory. And I had one of those good moments where I stopped and I went, I kind of did. I was fortunate at UCLA. It's very different now, but when I was there, most people came to be actors, but it was a BA in theater. So you're studying all aspects of theater: lighting, stage design, direction, costuming, history. And the acting classes were the only ones you kind of had to audition for. So you weren't guaranteed that piece of it, which is why most people had come. I was fortunate that I just got to be in play after play after play after play after play, which is always where I've said I really learned the most, especially in theater, because it's a longer time frame. You really get to sit with something for a while, for a few months or 6 weeks. You're kind of living, breathing. Broadway, obviously, it's for months and months and months and months and months. But it's a different pace of getting to sit within something and slowly take on a character and develop and try again. And one moment is perfect, and then the next night it's not. And kind of how to be with all that. So it was really my way of learning. You're working with different directors, different people. So it was great. Graduated from there. I had no idea. Like green is green is green is green is green could be about film. I can stand on a stage and feel. Allie and I went to see a friend of hers in a show on Broadway, and we got to go backstage after. And I stood on the stage there thinking I was going to have this like, oh my God, Broadway, it's so scary. And I was shocked. I was like, nah, this feels like home. This is just another theater with seats. Granted, if I did a show on Broadway, I might die of a heart attack. But for that moment, I was like, I got this. Whereas film and TV felt like I had so much to prove. It was very foreign. I was much more anxious in terms of so much to prove is probably the best way to do it. And I'd made a decision that it was like different. Theater was here, film and TV was there. Whatever. That started my journey. I was fortunate enough. I started booking a lot of commercials. Was sort of how I first got into it and working. I had a small. I went to a friend I'd gone to college with, Anya, who's now an amazing. Well, she was in casting then, and now she's gone on to have a very wonderful career in casting. And I went to her saying, "Hey, do you know anybody who wants me, like a guy with nothing? Agents, managers, do you know anything?" She's like, "No, not really. But why don't you come read for this part?" She was with at the casting company at the time. They cast all of Wolfgang Petersen's movies. And I went in and read for a part in the movie Outbreak.
Oh, wow.
I got this role. It seemed like nothing, but it ended up being a part of this like climactic scene at the end of the film. I was kind of discovered. Breakdowns were saying, who's Sandman? Who's this kid? I was like this new face. But it was interesting, Stephen, in the long picture because, and this is part of the life story, I wasn't ready. I was so clean. I was so nervous. I didn't know that the one thing I really had going for was me, all of me. And I think that's a hard thing as an artist to really start to inhabit yourself completely and not need to be anything else because that's all you got.
Yeah.
It's kind of that. I think I don't know if it's the old parable of, I think that Jackson Pollock and the young artist knocks on his door and says, "Hey, Jackson Pollock, I want to be like you." And he says, "I'm already me," and slams the door. That's what makes it hard. That's what makes it beautiful. That's what makes it rewarding.
Stay tuned. Our conversation with Maury Sterling continues in the next episode. From Homeland to Smokin Aces. There's plenty to uncover. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop us a comment. We'd love to hear from you.